Okay, and action.
Hi everybody, welcome back to part 2 of creativity. In the last video, we talked about creativity in the productivity sense and how to be more productive in work and life. But there's also a really different side of creativity, and it has to do with our emotional response to our thought in this very moment. And I'm very creative when it comes to that. I can create a scenario as far as if I'm worried about Rudy driving. That seems to be my big filter. I create a scenario of if I can't get a hold of him, what happened and what am I going to do because this happened? And then what am I going to do about what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
And it's just a whole other side of being creative. We're very creative beings. And sometimes it can be beautiful and life can evolve in such a beautiful, creative way. But sometimes, like I explained, we can have these creative thoughts and we can live in that feeling. We can have an emotional response to our thoughts in this very moment.
Yeah, like an example of that would be, I don't know, like I said no to somebody who wanted something and then I didn't hear from them for ages and I emailed them and they still didn't get back to me. So I created in my mind a scenario where they were upset with me. They didn't like me. They didn't want to be my friend anymore. They were upset with me. Can any of you guys relate to that?
Yes. I sent out an email and it was Hawaii afternoon time, which means the next day for pretty much the rest of the world. And I didn't hear back from them, but yet I didn't give them time to go home and sleep and get up in the morning and check the email and then respond. I already started creating what I thought was going on maybe a couple hours after I sent the email.
Yeah. That's our blessing and our curse in a sense. It's a double-edged sword. But the power to create is universally true for all of us. That's just inbuilt in the system of being human, if you will. Thought is the brush or the pencil that creates on our story or palette of life. So thought is the creative power that we have. And boy, do we blimmin' abuse it. I know that I do. Going back to my story, I emailed her and nothing. And then eventually I got a Facebook message about 2 weeks later saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. It got lost in my inbox and I love you. And I was like, oh, like I'd created this scenario in my head that just wasn't true.
I think what happened is she had a family member that passed away and she had to leave the country.
Yeah.
And this is so true to, it's a calming response to all of our creative stories that we allow a whirlwind of thoughts in our mind to just run wild.
Well, there is help with this.
Yay!
If you're human, you are creative. In fact, some people say, I'm not creative at all, but they've created this big monster scenarios in their minds. So we are fundamentally creativity humaning at the moment. And thought is the brush that creates the story of our lives.
Yeah.
So, but there is a saving grace to this because there's nothing wrong with creating. We're going to create things that aren't true. We're going to create things that may be true. We can create worry about the future. We can create rumination. We can create being despondent about the past. We create. Now, the problem isn't that we create. The solution is knowing that we create.
Beautiful.
So with that example I just gave my friend, before I came across this understanding that we're kind of sharing during these Friday Night Lives, is I would have taken my creation to be true. She was angry with me. She didn't want to be my friend. She was upset. And in this instance, knowing what I know now, I saw that I was thinking about what I thought was happening. And I didn't buy into that opinion I'd created of her, because I just didn't know it was true. Creation is whatever we think it is.
Right. It's a filter.
It's not an instruction to what's true. It's a construction that we're using to create experience. So seeing our creative capacity as a construction rather than an instruction is so damn helpful.
It's freeing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Just knowing that we are unique diversities, these, like you said, consciousness humaning. And we are very creative with our belief system, with our thoughts, with our collection of thoughts that we kind of hold close to us. And with each circumstance, it's filtered through that, and it's believed to be true.
Yeah. Like, for example, Jules, lunatic, she goes to the gym, or she usually goes to the gym at 4 a.m. And my belief system about the gym is, are you insane, woman? So I thought, well, because I generally go to the gym at lunchtime, I thought, well, why don't I just go to gym at 4 a.m, just give it a go? And so I did, and it actually works pretty well.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, oh, really? But most of the time, it works pretty well. So when you know you're creating, you don't get stuck on what you've created as true and as the only way. In a sense, that is what you call fixed mindedness. Because creation's a construction, we can also uncreate. We can recreate. And with the recreation, we're not stuck with our belief systems having to be a certain way. So I go to gym at 4 a.m. now, and I never thought that was possible. I've changed jobs from being a tree surgeon, model, photographer, therapist, 3 principles, facilitator, videographer, photographer. I've changed professions a lot in my life. How did I do that? It's nothing to do with anything that I've got. It's because I'm able to change how I think about something, because thought is a construction. It's just made up. I don't mean made up in a derogatory sense. I mean, it's an act of creation, and we can recreate. Thank the Lord. Right,
exactly. And it goes to also say these subconscious thoughts that we have about ourselves can create a reality that we believe to be true. Like Rudy said something so innocently, it came through and filtered through my belief system, through my collection of thoughts, and felt like arrows in my heart.
Yeah.
But yet I know what he said, but what I felt was completely different.
Yeah.
And knowing that we are creative beings is just, it evolved me to heal that belief about myself. And that's what we want to share with you.
Yeah, it's a bit like, I will improvise. So in a relationship, I can say something to Jules, or Jules can say something to me, and what's happening, what we think happens is we speak and it goes into there, and then in here is exactly what came out of there.
Right.
Oh, if life was so simple.
It's not.
What happens is I speak, and then there's a T,
or a filter,
the thought filter there. So Jules's thought filter, I'm trying to stab you in the face with that.
It's okay.
Can I do it with one hand? I can do it with one hand. It's a very mashed up T. So I talk, then Jules's thinking or internal perception or creative potential, whatever you want to call it, gets hold of what I've said, turns it into something, and then places it in her mind. So people aren't hearing what you're saying. They are hearing what they think about what you're saying. Then they create and experience a perception, a belief about that. And that's kind of what happened, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I sat down. It took me a good 24 hours. I was quiet after that. I don't think I said a word. Yeah. We continued on grocery shopping and all of that, but he could sense there was something. I was a little bit quieter, but I didn't speak to how I felt because I knew that it was coming from within, that it's an inside job, that I was creating this via my thought filter.
Yeah.
and I was very creative. But just knowing that we are creative beings helped me sit down and say, okay, Rudy, I know what you said. However, I heard something different.
Yeah.
And so we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very helpful.
So if what we create isn't seen as thought, it just looks true.
Right.
And you'll behave as if it's true.
Right.
If you know it's a construction, a creative construction via thought, you can question it. So what happened? I said something, Jules heard something else, but because she knew it was an internal job, instead of immediately blaming and criticizing, and we have a big argument about it, we had a conversation about it, and she just asked me a few questions. Well, what did you mean by that? And then it clarified things, and she realized she didn't hear what I'd said. She'd heard what you'd made up in your mind.
Yeah.
And I do that too with Jules. It's
Mm-hmm.
we all do that. So I guess when we talk about an internal creativity, again, last week's we did more of a physical out there creativity, productivity. This is an internal one. True liberation is knowing that we create, and it's a construction. It's all a thought created construction. Knowing it's thought gives us a broader range of consciousness to see so many different perspectives, to be less judgmental, less reactive, and more loving.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And it's liberating. It's freeing, and it feels better. We go from contracted to expansive.
So, anything else? Coolio. All right, guys. Hope this is kind of helpful, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday Night Live.
Thanks.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Get creating.